Welcome to the Magma Classroom, our weekly digital painting study session in partnership with Wacom. This particular classroom series focuses on the basics of digital painting, starting with the fundamentals of value, shapes, light and color. We've done a good few apples and spheres already in previous lessons, tried our hands at some more interesting still life studies, broken down simple landscapes, and even run a gauntlet of timed exercises to speed up the learning process. These 1-hour study sessions are aimed at beginners finding their feet with digital painting, illustrators who want to tackle new subjects to grow their visual library, and more experienced painters wanting to warm up or wind down with something different from their usual work. I'm your host Ryan, the resident artist at Magma, and together we'll be sharpening our skills each week with a new subject to study. Top up your mug and grab your drawing tablet. While you wait, be sure to subscribe if you're not already so that you can stay updated about future sessions. We'll be getting started shortly. Hey, everything's starting to come together. Marvelous, marvelous. Now I just need a little tune. There we go. There we go. Let's drop the volume there. In case you like to listen to your own music in the headphones, don't want to be competing with what I've got here. Okay. So, just in case you haven't joined before, you don't know how the whole thing goes, we have a bunch of canvases down here on the bottom. If you don't see this panel, then we have the film strip icon over here. You click that, it'll bring up the sequence panel, and you can grab one of the empty canvases on the screen that's in the sequence, and you can focus in on your study. Now, the idea is we're going to do this for 1 hour. If you're a beginner, no worries. I'll guide you a little bit through the process, or I'll explain my process anyway in tackling this. We're going to do something a little different this time. Normally we try and replicate a reference image. This time we're using the reference as more inspiration, just as reference, not as something that we're trying to copy. And we're going to go with something simple first, which is just a sphere. Because if you're starting to get into figuring out materials, the best way to start doing it is with a simple sphere, because where's this cable? Come on. There we go. A sphere is a simple thing that we've covered already, in how to light it and where you end up finding the terminator lines and what happens with bounced light. Just my camera up. So it's a form that we're familiar with. Lighting it is something that by now, having covered it a few times in our classroom sessions, it's going to be quite a familiar form to deal with. And now we're just adding a texture to it and changing the materiality of that object. So we're going with something quite weathered. And the first thing, oh, why does it do that? Is the touch setting on my tablet? Tricky little bugger might be resetting itself. That doesn't seem to be the case. There's a strange zooming in and zooming out issue here. Anyway, there's always something. You know how it goes on my streams. There's always something. Okay, so the way I like to start with something like this is to just do a quick circle here by using the circle shape set to full, and I'm doing this on a separate layer, right? And I'm going to just, while holding shift, make a perfect sphere. I'll move it up a little bit, maybe even make it a bit bigger, and then creating a new layer. I'm going to clip this to the layer below it with this button here, create clipping group, Control Alt and G. So now anything I paint will stay within that shape. Okay, seeing as we're working with a sphere, just want to keep it in there. Hey Manju, you got your tablet back. Cool. See you in the clubhouse on Wednesday. Our theme will be delicious food, so it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. So before we dive in, let's just have a little look at our material here. Okay, this is super rusted. Been out, taken a beating, and so we've got flakes of metal coming off as it's oxidized. Hey, Michael Samler, just here to listen. Cool. Good to have you here. Hopefully listening to me inaudibly cursing technology and guiding a little bit through the study will be helpful. So, okay, we know that we've got like the base color of our material here. We've got this sort of like cool gray metal, was probably like an iron type of ball, quite polished. So we do have a fairly strong highlight on it, but obviously has been oxidized a bit, a lot of rust appearing, a lot of surface damage and texturing. But the texture all across here is quite varied across it. So we've not only the metal before it's been damaged, that's still in good condition, apart from a few scratches. We have variation in color there, but then we also have variation in hue and saturation and lightness within the rusted areas as well. And that's going to follow a bit of, it's going to have its own natural variation just in terms of the degree of degradation that's there, the degree of oxidation, just how much it's rusting. There's going to be just that normal variation of color, but also it's going to follow the form and also the lighting scheme that we have. So value is going to change as it goes into the shadow areas. Stuff to keep in mind. And then I've got this door here as well, which I just kind of like the streaky aspect of it, which might work with one of our brushes quite well actually. But that's just got a nice sort of pattern. But you can see how it's got this unpredictable, well, maybe not unpredictable, but it's got this varied so look in how it appears. It would be predictable based on scratches and things that have occurred. But yeah, so you want to keep in mind while making your marks that you don't want to keep making the same kinds of marks with the same kinds of brush sizes, because then it's all going to look quite predictable. When things get rusted and damaged like this, they tend to be less reflective. So again, like just looking here at this sphere, the less damaged bits of the ball here, of this iron or steel ball, it still reflects quite a bit of light. But as we get into the rusted sections, we don't notice as as much light sort of reflecting. So there's not going to be sharp highlights in that. That's going to be more on the actual the sort of undamaged areas of our sphere. So we can approach this in a couple of different ways. Replicating the sphere, we'll keep to a similar sort of light scheme. Hey, we got Marta here, Michelle, welcome. We got Eyebrow as well, dropping in a few circles already to get started with. So I don't want to get overly detailed with the sphere, because I want to then shift into applying this into another set of shapes. We can play around with some weird shapes. So the first thing I want to do here is get a bit of what this would look like without the rusting going on. So let's see. The rusting's really quite warm. The light is kind of cool. Going to the shadows, let's see, we can use our thing here to guide us a little bit. It doesn't get super saturated. You see, I was thrown off earlier because I had internet issues. Let me quickly activate those brushes for you. So for those that don't know, as part of our partnership with Wacom over the next 2 months, those who spend half an hour or more drawing with us, they'll get a free Blaze. Where's this thing now? For 7 days. But during the class itself, you will have access to the Blaze features as well. So you get to play around with our various brushes. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Now, if you refresh your page, you'll have access to our texture brushes. Cool. So here we go. I just want to put in a basic lighting scheme. I typically do a thing where my light comes from. Okay, I have to do that on a separate layer. Yeah. Well, I haven't drawn it all today. I usually do my light coming from this direction, and I'm going to use one of my texture brushes actually, and I'm going to use the rough streak. It's all the way right down at the bottom. I really like this one because it does have to it. That's for that pattern up there. Let's minimize this. Get this to a decent size. I'm going back to my layer that's clipped. King Blue, wow, very nice. Thanks. Haven't done anything yet, but thanks. You know what would be nice is if you join. The OG series as well. Welcome. Grab a canvas down below if you want to participate in the study, or you can chill here, watch along. So I'm going to make my brush really big because I've clipped this layer, right? So I don't have to worry about going outside of it. And I'm just setting up a basic lighting scheme. I'm not worrying about blending the colors just yet. That's maybe a bit excessive, right? That's a bit excessive. And I want to keep things a bit cooler. So I'm going to accentuate this, maybe shifting to a little bit of this sort of color scheme where it's a bit more blue. But I'm just going to use a big brush. And this maybe be a bit lighter. I don't know if I really want my shadows to be... I don't know if I really want them to be like this. The shadow is going to be cooler. That's what they should be. That's what I want them to be. So I'm going to shift this towards blue. But I want to... Yeah, that'll desaturate a bit more. Go a bit darker. Not off to a good start today. Let's go. Okay. This will be a bit lighter over here. Okay, so it's a basic scheme here. Let's light it a little bit. Light will maybe be a bit warmer, I guess. If we go for a warm light, saturate it a little. It's a bit too bright. Okay, so this just like sets up the basic lighting scheme. Now we can start to blend things in. So I'm going to set my pressure density to active. Now I can still do this with quite a big brush. Up the opacity and density down a little bit, just so I can get more even smoothing. I want to try and follow the form a little bit. So the way I've set things up here, the light is still pretty cool. I should actually shift it up this way. Let's change that. Get a bit lighter. We can follow the form a bit. And what I'm doing is color picking from these areas. Because I've got my density and opacity set to a bit lower, I am picking up a bit of the color underneath. So when I color pick, it's a bit in between these sections. So it allows for more smoother blending. Yeah, I'm just going to get this quite good. Maybe get a little darker here. Maybe a bit more. Saturate a little as we go into the shadows. And I can just keep blending in. It depends on, how, if you want to do like a super polished ball like this, you're going to probably bring these things way down, your density and opacity, and really color pick a lot to try and smooth these things out. But we're not going to go for that. We want something that's going to be a bit textured. Kind of leave it here. And if it was a ball in space or on like a light surface, there's going to be some reflected light. Depending on what the surface is, it's going to get some of that light bouncing up. So that's why this section in the middle tends to be darker. So some people do their spheres. This section tends to look quite a lot darker, and it's because of that terminator line where the planes, if you were to break this up into almost like squarish planes, where it's facing the light and turns away, and suddenly now everything is gradually facing more away from the light. This section is going to be much darker, but because we have light bouncing around in the environment, coming back onto here, which is a bit lighter, this middle section tends to be darker. Okay, so now let's bring in a bit of our. We can even lighten this up a little bit more. Get some sharper highlights, some brighter highlights rather. Thanks, King Blue. See you there on the YouTubes. Slightly desaturate in there. Oh, waiting for server response. Hey, don't do this to me. You're getting in the way of my fast hatching. Okay, but now we've got all this rust on our sphere. So let's go look for some warm rust. See, like even in here, how varied it is. I'm going to start with something a bit darker. And twist my back while I'm at it. Damn. And let's zoom out a bit. And I want to look at a bit of the shapes that are in here. It's all very all over the place, but I'm not going to define these shapes right away. I'm kind of going to let it do its own thing. Let's go a bit cooler because we're going into the shadows. I've started off with this really warm color, but I want to shift it a little bit to the desaturated side. Goes into this cool area, but can brighten up as we come here. And I'll define the shapes a little bit later, because even though you have these clear lines, let's see if I come here. Even though you have these clear edges, why is it not drawing there? Excuse me. There we go. Why? There we go. These lines here, you have, well, here I'm indicating at this edge. It's a very sharp edge, but the warm orange color doesn't stop there and then immediately go into the metal, into like polished metal. It's still that weathering's continuing over onto these bits. So that's those sort of edges we can define a little bit later. Oh, I want to actually go back to my clip layer. Thank you. There we go. I'm just adding a bit of this in, getting here in the shadows. This will probably be a bit lighter up here. Gain a bit of saturation or lose it. I'm going to lose a little bit as we get to this section here. Let's just get the darks in first. And particularly if you have, say you've got a bit of a damaged bit in here and rust starts to form around it. And it's been collecting water, whatever, like collecting over it over time. That's also going to follow the form of your sphere, right? It's not just going to be like a straight line down. We're drawing a sphere, or we're painting a sphere. So it's going to follow that sphere around. So this is what I mean when you want to, with all these various shapes and the changes of value, it's got to also follow a bit of the form. And you can follow it around in various sort of ways. But if it hasn't moved much, then, and there's been water like running over it, it's going to follow gravity, because that weathering is going to keep like going down. It's going to shift that rust sort of over, and probably going to maybe pool a little bit. Who knows? But it's not like it's going to spread out like that, right? It's all just going to follow. It's going to follow gravity. Where's the nearest point that it'll start going down? And here it could be a bit darker. Unless you could really spend a lot of time noodling around trying to get it to look perfect. Thing. We can lighten this up a little bit because there'd be some reflected light, just a little, just a touch. Don't want to compete for values up top here. You can dab as well. If you make a brush really big, we're staying within this sphere with any paint that we put down. When you go really big, you can get the characteristics of the brush that you're using. You can go maybe like a little bit darker and see what happens if I dab down. Then we get some like little dots and stuff that appear. It's quite nice for adding little specks and random bits of whoops, you lost my camera there for a second. Bits of texture. But it's always better to do this, I find, on a separate layer that is still clipped, preferably. Maybe even get a bit smaller. Then what you can do is you can start to erase some of this back. Grab my eraser, make sure that my pressure density setting is active. Make my brush kind of big here. I can kind of push some of it away, maybe even drop the opacity and density a little bit, just to eliminate some areas where it starts looking a bit predictable. Just can move it away. Still have these tougher specs that maybe doesn't quite work so well in there. I think would need to be, rather than these dark specks, actually be a bit lighter. Yeah, that's a bit better. Just because we get all sorts of kind of weathering going on. Okay. Yeah. And probably from this point, if you're just doing a quick thing, you could probably from here start to define some of these broken areas. But maybe before we do, let's add in a bit of brightness in here to some of these bits. Because notice how even in this patch here, yeah, you've got this sort of purpley, dark purpley orange, which we can probably shift a bit into the reds there. A bit darker. Yeah. Get some of that variation in. Let's go brighter for some areas. Okay, let's get it peeling a bit. Let's add some harder edges. What do we see when we go in here? What does this look like? Is it just straight black? What's going on underneath it? Is it a little darker towards there? What sort of patterns do we find? It's a little difficult. It seems like... Okay, there it's a bit lighter. Just trying to see if there's any sort of patterns in this. Obviously now when I zoom right in, it looks a bit of a mess. So we'll probably refine things a bit further. But in this section where it's much darker, what sort of color is this? Sort of desaturated red. You can probably go a bit wild with that here. Sometimes it's easier to start off with your brush settings, with the density and set to pressure. Have that off to start, so you can get those blocks of color in. Quite like a big section here. Big one in here. Oh, now I can blend that over. Get some of that orange in. Let's go a bit darker, and I want to get some flakiness going on in here. So internet's misbehaving. So you might lose my camera, get a stuttering voice every now and then. Let's see. Turn that off. What sort of shapes do we... So I'm just looking like randomly at... Not randomly, I'm just looking a little bit at the sort of shapes that get made. I'm looking at this section in particular. I kind of like this set of shapes. But also thinking about the form. There you go. Could even then lighten things up a little bit in here, because if this is where it's cracking and peeling off, this section is probably still going to be kind of blue. But it's going to be distinctly different. Maybe we'll even, if it's peeling upward, maybe this even gets a little bit lighter on this section. But if it's peeling upward, there's going to be quite a bit of added darkness on you. But it's jagged. That's the other thing to pay attention to here. That is a very jagged edge. So we see how it's not just going to be like a straight line. There's going to be lots of movement. There will even be patches that edges that are broken off and some that are still there. Let's find a bit of a lighter edge here. Any questions so far? Is what I'm doing sort of making sense? From a distance, something's starting to happen. So, oops. Try not to break my pen nib. Would be nice. Lighten up a little bit over here. Just a little bit, just so it defines that edge. Maybe we even get darker in here. Now, I've probably made this section a little too light. Let's go. It's a bit of dark in here. It's a little lighter. We're not going to be that dark up there. Can get a little lighter in some of these bits. What's going to be happening with the rust on this section, I wonder? Yeah, so you can really spend a good amount of time with something like this. Trying to get a really botched up sphere. But the other thing that might start to happen is that this sphere is no longer a really well polished sphere. A metal sphere is going to have probably quite a smooth edge. I mean, like the edge around here. But when things rust, it's breaking away, bits are peeling away. So that edge is probably going to start getting a bit jagged as well. So let's see if we see. Yeah, I can it sort of looks a bit sort of bumpy, the way the light sort of warps over it. So that's something we might want to include. Oh, we're already, wow, this is already half hour in. No, that's too dark. It's quiet here. But then what you can do with this, after you've been at it for a little while, if you want to get exciting and change things up a little bit, is you can then start to create other forms. And there's a lot I could do in the shadows there, of course. Here, that's probably going to be facing down this way. You can start creating your own shapes and forms, and stick with primitive shapes. What I mean by primitives, I mean like your cones, pyramids, squares, spheres. Combine them. That's kind of where I'm going with this now. This next part. I'll just merge these together. Lift to the side and do a quick example. I mean, that's starting to look all right. Okay, it's much like more towards this texture over here than what's going on in the sphere. Another thing to add here actually could be things like scratches. Those might capture a little bit more light. Let's see what sort of a nice brush for this might be the pencil brush. It's got this jaggediness to it. Let's see. Okay. Even this we can probably dab. Let's do it on a separate layer so that I can erase some of this out. Yeah, it's quite a bit too strong. Let's get smaller then. Yeah, you might notice that your ball's been dinged up a little bit, rolled around, scratched along rocky surfaces, and it's got sort of scratches along it. Don't want to go too wild here because it's easy for it to look repetitive. But just some like hard lines. Add a bit of variety in there. Anyway, I don't want to spend too much time there. Let's do a quick thing. Let's grab it, just the old pencil brush. Just going to do it on a new layer. And let's just play with some other form. Let's just start with a cube. Thinking of some of these still labs that we've done before. Let's just plot a cube. Yeah. And maybe do like a cutaway into it. Still trying to keep things in perspective. But let's say there's a ball attached to it in here. So about this point here. It's going to be a weird one. Mayuki, thank you very much. Cool to have you join us on the stream here. If you want, even though we're a good way into the stream already, but you can come and grab a canvas if you want to. Actually, I haven't checked how many people we've got here. Bit of a quiet bunch. Yes, we've got a couple of peeps joining there. Maybe there's a what to do next. I didn't quite think this through, did I? This is sticking out a little bit. Maybe we do a no. Seriously. Getting close to the edge. not particularly straight. It's fine. How would this even work? I don't know. It comes out. It's just here that it would sort of wrap around. But if it's set in, come on, Ryan, what are you doing? Set in is probably going to be something like this. Yeah. Well, I think my camera's frozen. Could be that everything's frozen. I don't know. Let me know if you can hear me. So what I'm going to do now, same thing like we did last time. I'm just going to fill this in with a color. I might fill it in. I'm going to paint it in. Let's go back to this. I've done this underneath the sketch layer just so I can keep things organized. Doesn't matter, this is all going to overflow. I want it to be the same material. Keep it neat. To be a little bigger down here. That's a bit much, I think. That's a bit much. Okay. Erase. Okay. So now I'm going to do a clipping layer on top of that. And now we can get into painting things. Let's go a bit grayer, I think. Let's go a bit grayer. Saturate a little bit. In painting, I'm going to just grab any random chalky brush because I like that. Follow our lighting scheme that we had before. Things are a bit lighter on this side. Here it's going to be a bit darker, depending on how the light hits. It's probably going to be a bit lighter. All right. And this is probably also going to be a bit lighter. And over here. A bit cooler into the shadows. Desaturate a little bit. Go darker here. This is going to be dark over here too. I think it's going to shade this out. I definitely didn't plan this part. It's quite obvious. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Let's start adding some some of our rust in here. So we're going cooler in the shadows, but obviously the rust is quite warm, but I'm just desaturating a little bit of that. I can color pick from the sphere. This is the other reason why it's good to do these sphere tests, because you can use the sphere to color pick from. Quite helpful. So, a little bit lighter with that. Maybe a bit more. Change this to music track. Get my mouse over. I'm gonna have to spend a little extra time to get this one right, I think. How are you finding this, eyebrow? It's Trixie. Yeah. Let's go darker, use the reds. Probably going to get a bit of, I want to get a little bit more rust on the edge of this. No problem, dude. Go get rest. Go get rest. Such a champion for still coming through even for a little bit this late hour. So let's smooth things out a little bit here. What about you, OG Siri? How do you find this? Why is my music not playing? Come on, man. Oh, busy days, busy days. I look forward to hearing about your environment course and seeing the results of your lessons. Cheers, rest well. Let's see here. Very tricky, very tricky. Oh, waiting for server response. Okay. So I just had to check something there real quick. So I wanted to get a bit of this sort of lighter color in as well. Super difficult. Haven't done metal before. Yeah, cool. Okay, that's good. So long as this is challenging. Might even have a little bit more light catching over here. Oh, that's weird. What could be beeping at me now? Okay, we've got about 10 minutes left of the stream. What I might do is not continue streaming because my internet is being extremely temperamental. Is that when we get to the end of the hour, I'll cut the stream, but I'll probably keep drawing for a little while. So if you want to hang out, keep drawing, keep painting, then I'll be here with you. I'll be here with you. I'll just need to change hopefully when the stream ends, it'll relieve a bit of stress on my router here. Okay, but now having removed my lines, my edges look awful. So I want to try and neaten that up a little bit. I haven't even put a shadow underneath. Seems to make a bit more sense. I don't think what I'm doing is making any sense here, actually. Anyway, yeah, it's all good. As much as I am hosting these things, I'm challenging myself as well with these kinds of studies. Why isn't I color picking the color that I want? I definitely need to do more of these sort of exercises where I just combine shapes. Because it came out better in my head, as it happens sometimes. Oh, this is kind of generous. Merge this down, I think. Just keep everything together. My brain is not working with this. Why? What have I done? This is meant to be simple. One thing is that here it's really dark when it should be really light. It's blocking that. I think I'm gonna have to start this whole idea over again. But hey, that's the point of all this, right? It's not meant to be about perfect drawings. It's about trying to figure it out, taking the time, making the mistakes, making the decisions, realizing they were the wrong decisions, and finding a better path. Hopefully forward without needing to go backward too much. Sometimes we just have off days. But I didn't go with a big brush like I was supposed to in the beginning. I think I was a bit too hasty, and actually that led to more problems. No, that's not consistent with this. Let's go right. Come on, Ryan. Come on. Yeah, I think I didn't follow the same approach as I did with the sphere, actually, in doing this. So I'm going to can that, actually. I'm gonna try again. But this time I'm gonna end the stream here. See, that was a bit of a disaster. Definitely needs to be. Definitely need to take another crack at it, because that's, as much as the idea is not perfect painting, that is unacceptable. Cool. So thank you very much, guys, for joining and watching along. Sorry about the technical endlessly. As soon as I implement one fix, I figure one thing out, the next thread starts coming undone. Anyway, I'll see you guys again on Thursday. We're going to be doing another one of these. We'll look probably at some different metal. Maybe we'll actually spend more time doing a bit of a shape thing. I think I know what we'll do. We'll look at one of the older still lifes that we've done before, and apply this sphere texture over that. That might be a bit of an easier approach. Take a bit of the thinking out of the placement and interesting objects. We'll have that determined for us, and then we apply the texture following the lighting and all the other general rules. The information that we have to kind of follow. So yeah, and also don't forget, on Wednesday we have the clubhouse. So we're doing just our casual hangout on Wednesday, same time, and the theme is delicious food. So it's bound to be a good one. I know her eyebrow has been looking forward to that, and we're going to try I think we need to get Cybernaut in there as well, always doing his fruit and veg studies, which are fantastic. You should definitely check them out on the Magma Discord, in the Share Your Art channel. Some great stuff there. So thanks again for joining OG Siri. You'll also get 7 days free Blaze. Seeing as you stuck it out. Great job, by the way. These look fantastic. I really like the deep gashes through this top left one. Very cool. Very, very cool. Let's see what eyebrow did here. Oh, interesting. Very interesting. Almost looks partially on fire. Nice. So back at it again Thursday. That's all from me. Ciao for now.